Continuing now with our Thought Leaders series here on LMFM, we're joined now in studio by Mary Nally. 25 years ago, Mary was inspired by her mother and her aunt to set up an organisation to change how people view the abilities of the elderly and the amount they can contribute to society. Her organisation, Third Age, has gone from strength to strength, I think it's fair to say, and has campaigned long and hard over the years to make life more fulfilling for older people. Mary, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Orla.
Mary, it was your mother and your sister who inspired you, and her sister who inspired you. Tell us all about that.
That's right. My father died and we lived in a very rural area, and my mother came to live with us. We built on a granny flat. And I became very aware. I could see village life through my mother's eyes. My mother was a person of the world. She loved the daily newspapers. She loved to keep up with what was happening in the world. And through my mother's eyes, I could see that there was very little within our village for my mother to do, to engage with, and that's when and plus my background is nursing, and I had worked for 10 years in a long stay hospital for older people. So I called a public meeting to see what the level of interest would be in maybe we setting up something, we starting something.
What age would your mother have been at that stage?
My mother was in just her early 70s at that stage.
So she was still very active and very healthy and plenty to offer. And her sister
as well. She had indeed, yes. And that's how it all started. It was, something that I felt very strongly about. It's how do you get older people to remain engaged, connected in their communities, and
to feel a value in themselves.
Absolutely, a value in themselves, but it can also be of real value to the communities as well.
And back then, what did you start by doing? When you say you were looking for activities, what sort of activities did you start with? Well, I know it's gone much bigger lately, but
yes, but it was driven by the people who joined, by the older people themselves. And we started like from very, very humble beginnings with we had guest speakers in, like solicitors, guards. You name it, we had them in. We ran out of guest speakers. We started then to travel a little bit, and we built up alliance with a group in South Armagh, and we actually travelled to Scotland, two groups together, 2 busloads of people for a week. And we got to, learn a lot from that group. And it was from there then that we decided, and I could see that we had a lot to offer, that wealth of talent, expertise, that wisdom, and I was tapping into that.
Mary, you yourself clearly at that time were much younger than this older group of people, and I think from what you're describing there, one of the things that people maybe who don't spend time with older people sort of forget is how much fun they are and how much they have to say. That when you go on a trip like that, I'd say you were laughing from one end of it to the other, were you?
And it's always the same. We have travelled right around Europe, even to America. We've participated in the World Senior Games in Utah. It's just a ride from beginning to end. I always say that we know how to enjoy ourselves. Older people know how to enjoy themselves, to have fun. And yes, we've had and continue to have great times together. But also, it's just looking at what older people themselves have to offer and to contribute. And that's what we have done in Summerhill. And it was, there are issues, and how could we address them? And that's what we did. We sat down, just for instance, transport, going back 25 years ago, was a huge issue in a rural area. And we decided to fundraise and to get our own transport. Chiropody, when you don't live near a chiropodist, and it's so vitally important. If you can't walk, if you have, and it just takes maybe a visit to the chiropodist to help that. We decided, let's, do a research and take a chiropodist into our centre. And that we did. And that chiropodist, is booked up every time she sits in Third Age.
And
so
from
it was just like that.
From those humble beginnings, Mary, you now have 1,000 volunteers around the country and a staff of 24. That's incredible.
Yes, it is. Well, it's we have 3 national programmes. One is Senior Helpline. The next is Faultiest Jock, and the third is the National Advocacy Programme. And they started in Summerhill Senior Helpline, and that started with 32 trained volunteers, and that was addressing the whole issue of loneliness and isolation. People who are housebound, people who may be frail, people who maybe have nobody to talk to. And what they can do is pick up the helpline and dial the number, and they are through to an older volunteer.
We heard earlier in the news last week, we heard in the news about the alarming increase in statistics in the calls to these helplines and the kind of problems being encountered by older people. So that's obviously, your lines are very, very busy.
Our lines are very, very busy, but we're open every day from 10 in the morning until 10 at night, 365 days of the year. And the number is 1850 440 444. And all our volunteers, we have 350 volunteers, and they're all trained.
So an older person who has any worry or concern can ring that number at any time. Are there branches around the country they can join? An active older person who would like to get out and meet all these wonderful people and go on these trips you're talking about?
Yes. Well, for a senior helpline, we have we're 17 branches. For Faultiest Jock, which is another national programme that started in Summerhill, and it was really where we identified a need, where we, migrants who are coming to our country or in our country and unable to speak our language, unable to speak English. And we decided to invite them into third age and to teach conversational English. And with some training for our volunteers, we opened our doors. And it was so successful. And Summerhill is just a tiny village. If you blink, you've passed it. And the demand was so great that we decided that we would roll it out around the country. And just recently, we have just opened our doors. We have 54 branches nationally.
I think what you're describing there, Mary, is the idea that older people not only go on trips and have a bit of fun, but that they give back as well, because they have so much skills to give back, and that they can actually become the teachers, they can become the providers of the information as well as the receivers of the help.
That's right, they can become advocates as well. Yes, they have so much to offer, that wealth of talent, that wealth of expertise. And when you retire, and it may be from being a mother, rearing a family, or from the workforce, we have found that people are very, very generous with their time as well. And that's what's happening right around the country. The National Advocacy Programme, and that was set up as a direct result of what happened in Lees Cross. And we all know what happened in Lees Cross, where we had older people who were being abused in a long-stay hospital, a long-stay nursing home for older people. And it was the HSE who set up the National Advocacy Programme. But because there was a conflict of interest, because there were advocates going into HSE facilities, they advertised for expressions of interest for that programme. And we were one of the organisations who applied for it, and we were successful in our bid.
What exactly is an advocacy programme and how does it work?
Yeah, an advocacy programme is where we have advocates going into long-stay facilities, long-stay like nursing homes, and they are the eyes and ears of the older people when they go into that nursing home. But they can advocate for somebody who may have nobody to advocate for them.
And by advocate for them, you mean that if an observer like that goes into a nursing home and sees anything untoward, they literally do the arguing for the older person. Absolutely. They actually go and do battle with the authorities or with the staff. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they can, and we have in place a reporting system. And we're in over 90 nursing homes right around the country. And at the moment, as we speak, we're training 25 more advocates. Advocates are trained to a very high level. They've been trained in UCD to HETAC level 7. And
these would be older volunteers themselves.
Some of them
just
are
want
older,
to do that.
and some of them are younger people who are going in. And yes, who have made a decision that they would like to do this, and it's been very, very successful.
Completely on a volunteer basis?
It's completely voluntary.